Commander Zeleth stood on the bridge of the Korvath warship Crimson Talon, watching the small blue planet rotate slowly on the view screen. This was his 13th annexation mission, and like the previous 12, it would be simple and quick. The species below had only just discovered basic radio technology. They would not even understand the hail signal his ship was about to send. "Begin transmission," Zeleth ordered, settling into his command chair with practiced confidence. His communications officer, a young Korvath named Kess, activated the standard annexation protocol. The message broadcast across all quantum frequencies, a declaration that had brought 47 worlds into the Dominion's control. It was simple. Submit to Korvath authority within 72 hours, or face military occupation. Most species took weeks just to detect the signal. Many never responded at all. Zeleth expected silence. Instead, a response came back in less than 3 minutes. "Sir," Kess's voice cracked with surprise. "We have a reply." "Impossible." Zeleth leaned forward. "Check your systems. Systems are functioning normally, Commander. The response is coming from the planet's surface. Multiple transmission points, perfectly synchronized." Kess played the message. A calm human voice spoke in flawless Korvath language. "Greetings to the Korvath Dominion. We have received your hail and appreciate your interest in establishing contact. Please wait. The Supreme Council will address your message shortly. We hope your journey was pleasant." Zeleth blinked. In his 12 previous missions, no species had ever responded in his own language. Most could not even detect quantum encrypted channels. "Play it again. Play it again," the message repeated. The voice was professional, almost friendly. It showed no fear, no confusion, just polite acknowledgement. "Sir, I'm detecting something else." Kess's fingers moved rapidly across his console. "There are platforms in orbit around the planet. Dozens of them. They just powered up. Weapons platforms?" Zeleth stood, his confidence wavering. "I don't think so, sir. The energy signatures are wrong, but they're definitely active now, and they're tracking our position." Before Zeleth could respond, another message arrived. This time, it included a data package. "The Supreme Council will convene in 48 hours, the same calm voice said. "We look forward to diplomatic discussions. Please maintain your current position. We are transmitting cultural information for your crew's entertainment during the wait. If you require anything, please ask." Zeleth stared at the screen. Diplomatic discussions? These primitives were treating the Korvath Dominion like guests, not conquerors. "Sir, the data package is safe to open," Kess reported. "It contains entertainment feeds, food synthesis patterns, and cultural information about Earth. That's what they call their planet." "Open it," Zeleth said slowly. The data flooded their systems. Music, art, historical records, scientific papers. All organized, all accessible. Zeleth randomly selected a historical file and began reading. His blood ran cold. These humans had discovered nuclear weapons 200 years ago. They had nearly destroyed themselves with them. Then, somehow, they had stopped. They had unified their entire planet under a single government. The file showed images of their wars, their conflicts, their near extinction, and then it showed their recovery, their unity, their expansion into space. "Kess, how long have these humans been spacefaring?" the young officer checked. "According to their records, they've had faster-than-light capability for nearly 200 years, sir. 200 years. That was longer than many Dominion member species. Why haven't we encountered them before?" End quote. Why haven't we encountered them before? End quote. Why haven't we encountered them before? Why haven't we encountered them before? Unknown, sir. But, Kess hesitated. "Sir, I'm detecting more activity in their system. There are ships near their outer planets. Large ones, and structures on their moon and on the red planet they call Mars." Zeleth pulled up tactical scans. The young officer was right. Earth's solar system was far from primitive. It was developed, organized, and clearly well defended. How had Dominion intelligence missed this? Another message arrived. This time it was text only. We understand your standard protocol involves a 72-hour deadline. We want to assure you that we will respond well within that time frame. The Supreme Council takes first contact very seriously. Please enjoy the entertainment we've provided. They know our protocols, Zalith muttered. They know exactly what we came here to do. Over the next hours, more ships arrived in Earth's orbital space. But they were not human ships. They were vessels from other species, small merchant craft and traders. They completely ignored the Korvath warship and proceeded directly to Earth stations. Sir, those ships are from the Telkari Union and the Finros Collective, Kess reported. They're trading with Earth. What? Zelith pulled up identification scans. The young officer was correct. Earth already has diplomatic relations? It appears so, sir, and they seem well established. Those traders are acting like this is a regular route. Zelith contacted Dominion High Command. The response took 2 hours to arrive, which gave him plenty of time to review more of Earth's cultural data. What he read disturbed him more with each passing minute. Humans were persistence hunters. On their world, they had been neither the strongest nor the fastest. But they had been patient. They had outlasted every other predator on their planet. They had survived ice ages, diseases, natural disasters, and their own self-destructive tendencies. And every time they fell, they got back up. High Command's response finally arrived. Continue observation. Do not engage unless threatened. We are analyzing the situation. That was not the confident answer Zelith had expected. High Command was uncertain. That alone told him something was very wrong. Sir, Kess called out, I've found something in the historical records. 3 other species attempted to intimidate Earth in the past 50 years, and all 3 are now Earth's trading partners. There are records of negotiations, but no details. Whatever happened during those meetings, all 3 species changed their approach to Earth completely. Zelith felt something he had not experienced in 12 annexation missions. Doubt. These humans had turned potential enemies into partners. They had done it 3 times. They had capabilities the Dominion had not known about. And they were treating his warship like a guest, not a threat. A final message arrived as the first day ended. We hope you found the entertainment satisfactory. Tomorrow we will send additional materials, including recipes for Korvath dietary requirements and more cultural exchanges. The Supreme Council is very much looking forward to meeting you. Zalith sat alone in his quarters that night, reading human history. One phrase kept appearing in their records. Speak softly and carry a big stick. It was advice from an ancient human leader. It meant to be polite, but prepared for violence. Looking at Earth's orbital defenses, its hidden infrastructure, its quiet confidence, Zalith realized he had made a terrible mistake. These were not primitives, waiting to be conquered. These were patient hunters who had been watching, waiting, and preparing, and in 48 hours, he would have to face their Supreme Council. The second day brought more surprises. Commander Zelith woke to find another data package waiting from Earth. This one contained entertainment specifically selected for Korvath preferences, strategic games, military history, and philosophical debates. Someone on Earth had studied Korvath culture carefully enough to know what would interest his crew. Sir, the crew is talking, Kess reported during the morning briefing. They're watching human entertainment and reading their history. Many are concerned. Concerned about what? About what happened to the other 3 species who tried to intimidate Earth. About how humans survived their own near extinction. About how patient they seem. Kess paused. Sir, the crew is wondering if we made a mistake coming here. Zalith could not disagree. He had spent most of the night reviewing intelligence reports, and the picture they painted was troubling. Earth had maintained a low profile for 2 centuries while systematically studying every major galactic power. They had learned languages, customs, military capabilities, and diplomatic protocols, all while the galaxy remained completely unaware of their presence. "Show me those orbital platforms again," Zelith ordered. Kess brought up the scans. The platforms had not moved, but they remained active. Their energy signatures were unusual, unlike any weapons system in the Dominion database. That worried Zelith more than obvious weapons would have. Unknown technology meant unpredictable capabilities. "I've been analyzing the platforms, sir," Kess said quietly. "Their positioning is perfect. Every angle of approach to Earth is covered, not just from our position, but from any position. They built these platforms, assuming threats could come from anywhere. How long would it take to build that kind of defensive network? Decades, sir. Maybe a century. They would have had to start building immediately after achieving spaceflight." Zelith absorbed that information. These humans had entered space already planning for war. They had not been naive explorers hoping to find friends. They had been survivors preparing for the next threat. A new message arrived from Earth. "Good morning, Commander Zelith. We hope you rested well. Today's data package includes advanced materials, science, and energy distribution theories. We thought your engineering staff might find them interesting. Also, please find attached a selection of human music called symphony orchestras. Many species find them relaxing." "Oh, never." The message was signed by Admiral Park Min-ji, Earth Defense Command. "They know my name," Zelith said. "They've known it since we arrived, sir. Probably longer." Kess pulled up communication logs. "Every message has been personalized. They're not broadcasting general responses. They're talking directly to us." More ships arrived throughout the day. A Telcari merchant vessel docked at Earth's largest station. 2 Finros science ships entered high orbit for what appeared to be a scheduled research exchange. A small craft from the Planori Republic delivered what scanners identified as luxury goods. Zelith hailed the Telcari merchant captain. The response was cordial, but brief. "Yes, Commander, we trade with Earth regularly," the Telcari captain said. "Fine people. The humans. Fair prices. Good quality goods. They keep their word. If you're here to trade, you'll find them reasonable. If you're here for other reasons." The captain paused. "I would suggest trading instead. Rain. Rain. Way. Rain. Rain. R. R." The conversation ended before Zelith could ask more questions. He tried contacting the Finros ships. They were polite, but clearly uninterested in talking about Earth. Their message was clear. Whatever Earth was to them, they considered it none of the Korvath's business. "Sir, I've found something else," Kess said, his voice tight. "Remember those 3 species who tried to intimidate Earth? Yes. I accessed Dominion intelligence archives using my security clearance. There are classified reports about each incident." Kess transferred the files to Zelith's private terminal. "Sir, you should read these alone." Zelith went to his quarters and opened the files. What he read made his hands shake. The first species, the Dravok Confederation, had arrived at Earth 60 years ago with 10 warships. They had demanded immediate submission. Earth had asked them to wait. The Dravok had refused and moved to attack positions. According to the report, all 10 Dravok ships had been disabled within 4 minutes. Not destroyed. Disabled. Every weapons system, every engine, every critical component had been hit by precision strikes that left the crews alive, but helpless. Earth had then towed the Dravok ships to safe orbit, provided medical care to injured crew members, and invited the Dravok to discussions. 6 months later, the Dravok became Earth's first official trading partner. The second incident involved the Kellis Empire 20 years later. They had brought 30 ships. Earth had disabled all 30 in 7 minutes. The pattern repeated. Precision strikes, no casualties, immediate medical assistance, diplomatic discussions. The Kellis signed a mutual defense treaty within a year. The third incident was most recent, only 8 years ago. The Shan Collective had arrived with 50 ships and threatened orbital bombardment. Earth had disabled all 50 ships in 12 minutes, while simultaneously evacuating 3 Shan colony ships that had suffered life support failures during the confrontation. The Shan now considered humans their closest allies. Zelith sat in silence, absorbing the implications. Earth had never started a fight, but they had ended 3 of them, with overwhelming force and 0 casualties on either side. They had the capability to destroy enemy fleets, but chose to disable them instead. Then, they offered friendship to the very species who had threatened them. It was not mercy, it was strategy. Earth demonstrated superior power while maintaining moral authority. They proved they could kill, but chose not to. That made former enemies grateful to be alive and willing to listen. They're doing it to us right now, Zelith whispered to his empty quarters. This waiting period, the entertainment, the cultural exchanges, they're showing us their capability without threatening us. They're letting us see what they could do, while treating us with respect. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Kess entered, looking worried. Sir, you need to see this. Sensors just detected a massive energy spike from Earth's lunar base. Weapons. Charging. No, sir. They launched something. Multiple objects, very fast. Leaving the solar system on different trajectories. Zelith pulled up the sensor data. Earth had fired dozens of small craft on trajectories that would take them throughout nearby space. What are those? Unknown, sir. But based on their size and speed, I think they're courier drones. They're heading toward every major civilization within 50 light years. Earth is telling everyone we're here, Zelith realized. They're making our presence public. Yes, sir, and they're doing it now, before the Supreme Council meeting. They want the galaxy watching. Another message arrived from Admiral Park. Commander Zelith, we wanted to inform you that we have notified nearby civilizations of your arrival. We believe first contact should be transparent. Several ambassadors have expressed interest in attending the Supreme Council meeting as observers, if you permit. Of course, the decision is yours. We respect your privacy in these discussions. Zelith laughed bitterly. Privacy? Earth had just ensured that dozens of species would know everything that happened in that meeting. If the Korvath threatened Earth, the galaxy would know. If the Korvath attacked Earth, the galaxy would see. Earth had removed the option of quiet intimidation. Sir, what do we do? Kess asked. Zelith looked at his young officer and saw his own uncertainty reflected there. We attend the meeting tomorrow, and we pray that Earth truly wants diplomacy, because if they wanted war, we would have been disabled already. That night, Zelith did not sleep. He reviewed every file, every intelligence report, every cultural document Earth had provided. He studied human warfare, human diplomacy, human philosophy, and he came to understand something that terrified him. Humans did not fight to conquer. They fought to survive. And they had become very, very good at it. They had learned that the best way to survive was to be so dangerous that no one wanted to fight them, and so reasonable that no one needed to. Tomorrow he would meet the Supreme Council. Tomorrow he would learn what price Earth would demand for peace. And tomorrow he would have to decide if the Korvath Dominion was wise enough to accept it. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, giving Commander Zelith his first direct view of the planet that had upended everything he thought he knew about primitive species. Below him, cities sprawled across continents, connected by infrastructure that looked both beautiful and functional. But Zelith's military training noticed other things. The cities were built in defensive positions, with clear sightlines and hardened central structures. The civilian infrastructure could convert to military use rapidly. Even the parks and green spaces were positioned to provide clear fields of fire. They built their entire civilization expecting war, Zelith muttered. Beside him, Kess nodded. And they built it to survive war, sir. Look at those buildings. Distributed power systems, redundant communications, underground networks, You could destroy half this city, and it would still function. The shuttle landed at what humans called Geneva, in front of a building that looked modest from the outside. Zelith had expected grand displays of power, imposing architecture meant to intimidate. Instead, the Supreme Council building looked almost humble. That worried him more than any fortress would have. Admiral Park Minji met them at the entrance. She was smaller than most Korvath, with dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her smile was professional and warm. "Commander Zelith, Officer Kess, welcome to Earth. I hope your descent was pleasant. The Supreme Council is ready to receive you." She led them through corridors, decorated with art from what appeared to be dozens of human cultures, paintings, sculptures, textiles, all displayed with equal prominence. Zelith realized he was seeing a message. These humans valued all their cultures, all their peoples. Unity through diversity. The Supreme Council chamber was circular, with 12 seats arranged in a half circle. Behind each seat, holographic displays showed additional advisors, military officers, scientists, and representatives from human colonies on Mars and Europa. At the center stood Secretary General Kim Jae-won, an older human with gray hair and a calm expression. "Commander Zelith," Kim said in perfect Korvath. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. Please, be seated. We have much to discuss." Zelith and Kess took the offered seats. Around the chamber, he noticed observers from other species: Telkari, Finros, Planori, and others he did not recognize. Earth had made this meeting public, just as they had promised. Kim began without preamble. "Commander, we received your annexation hail 2 days ago. Before we respond formally, we wanted to understand your intentions and help you understand our position." A holographic display activated, showing Zelith's own ship broadcasting the hail message. Then, the display showed the message itself, annotated with dozens of markers. "We've analyzed your hail according to galactic diplomatic conventions, specifically the Tertian Accords of 2847 and the Harmony Protocols of 2903, Kim continued. "We found 47 violations of accepted first contact procedures. We wanted to bring these to your attention." Zelith felt his confidence crumble. The Tertian Accords? The Harmony Protocols? Those were obscure diplomatic agreements that most species had forgotten about. Earth not only knew about them, but had studied them carefully enough to identify specific violations. Councillor Martinez, representing Earth's American regions, spoke next. "We've also reviewed your previous annexations, Commander. All 47 of them. We found a pattern. You target species that lack faster-than-light communication, threaten them with superior force, and claim their worlds when they fail to respond according to your protocols." Another holographic display showed records of Korvath annexations, with detailed analysis of each incident. Zelith recognized classified Dominion military reports. How had Earth obtained those? "We need to be clear about something," Kim said, his voice still calm but carrying an edge of steel. "Earth will not be annexed. We are not a primitive species, caught unaware. We have been watching the galaxy for 150 years. We know who you are, what you've done, and how you operate. We invited you here to offer an alternative to conflict." Zelith found his voice. "The Korvath Dominion is a major power with thousands of warships. You may have some advanced technology, but you cannot stand against our full military strength." Councillor Okonkwo, representing Earth's African regions, smiled sadly. "Commander, we're not going to threaten you. We're simply going to show you what you've missed." The holographic display changed. It showed Korvath ships throughout their territory, going about normal operations. Then, markers appeared, highlighting small objects near each ship. Hundreds of markers. "Those are surveillance drones," Okonkwo explained. "We've been monitoring your fleet movements for 30 years. We know the position of every capital ship, every supply depot. every military installation. The display zoomed in on one of the Corvath's newest battleships. More markers appeared, showing weaknesses in the ship's design, vulnerabilities in its defensive systems, flaws in its engine configuration. "We're not showing you this to scare you," Kim said quietly. "We're showing you this to help you understand. We don't want war. If we wanted war, we could have started it years ago when you were unprepared. We chose to watch, to learn, and to wait for the right moment to introduce ourselves." Kess leaned forward. "Why now? Why reveal yourselves after so long?" Counselor Chen, representing Earth's Asian regions, answered. "Because we've watched you annex 47 species, and we've decided it needs to stop. Not through violence, but through diplomacy backed by strength. We're offering the Corvath a choice." "What choice?" Zelith asked. Kim stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "We want you as allies, not enemies. Earth is entering galactic politics with a clear goal. We want a federation of equals, not empires built on conquest. We're offering you a founding position in this new alliance. We'll share technology, establish mutual defense agreements, and work together to create a more stable galaxy." "In exchange for what?" Zalith asked, already knowing he would not like the answer. "In exchange for ending forced annexations and granting independence to species you've conquered in the past 200 years, Kim said simply. Zelith stood abruptly. "That's impossible. The Dominion would never accept those terms. Our entire society is built on expansion and strength through conquest." "Then your society is built on sand," Admiral Park said, from her position along the wall. "Commander, every empire built on conquest eventually falls. Either it runs out of species to conquer, or those species eventually unite against it. You've been successful because you've targeted weak opponents. But the galaxy is changing. Smaller species are forming alliances. Communication is improving. Eventually, someone will challenge you, and you'll discover that ruling through fear is not the same as ruling through respect." Counselor Volkov, representing Earth's Russian regions, added, "We've studied your history, Commander. The Corvath Dominion was not always an empire. 500 years ago, you were a peaceful confederation. Conquest became your way because you were attacked and nearly destroyed. You rebuilt your society around the idea that strength prevents vulnerability. We understand that. Humans have similar history. The holographic display showed human wars, human suffering, human near extinction from nuclear weapons. We almost destroyed ourselves," Volkov continued. "We learned that true strength isn't the ability to conquer. It's the ability to choose not to conquer. We're offering you the same lesson without the pain of learning it the hard way." Zalith looked around the chamber. Every human face showed the same expression. Sympathy, mixed with determination. They genuinely wanted the Corvath to accept their offer, but they were also clearly prepared to enforce their will if necessary. "And if we refuse?" Zelith asked. Kim returned to his seat. "Then you're free to leave. We won't stop you. But you should know that 15 species formerly under your control have requested Earth's protection. We've agreed. If you attempt to reclaim those worlds, you'll be at war with us. Additionally, the Galactic Trade Consortium has suspended your trading privileges pending resolution of diplomatic complaints filed by those species. Earth did not request this, but we support it." The trap was complete. Earth had not threatened the Corvath directly. They had simply positioned themselves as protectors of vulnerable species. If the Dominion attacked those species, they would appear as bullies attacking the weak under Earth's protection. If they accepted Earth's terms, they would lose face and territory. Either way, the old order was finished. "We need time to consider," Zelith said, feeling exhausted. "Of course," Kim replied. "You're welcome to stay on Earth as our guests while you consult with your government. We hope you'll choose partnership. The galaxy needs strong species working together, not fighting for dominance." As Zalith and Kess left the chamber, The young officer whispered, "Sir, they've beaten us without firing a shot." "I know," Zalith replied. "That's exactly what makes them so dangerous." Commander Zelith stood in the communications room of his ship, watching the faces of the Korvath High Command flicker in holographic display. Their expressions ranged from anger to confusion to barely concealed fear. He had just finished his report about the Supreme Council meeting, and the silence that followed was worse than any rebuke. Grand Marshal Theron, the highest military authority in the Dominion, finally spoke. "You're telling us that these humans have been spying on us for 30 years? That they know the position of our entire fleet?" "Yes, Grand Marshal. They showed me proof. Detailed surveillance data on our newest battleships, including design flaws we discovered only recently." "How is that possible?" demanded Admiral Corvin, commander of the Third Fleet. "Our security protocols are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Apparently not," Zalith replied. He did not enjoy delivering this news, but someone had to face reality. The humans have technology we don't understand. More importantly, they've had 150 years to study us, while we remained completely unaware of their existence. Counselor Varan, the Dominion's diplomatic chief, leaned forward. "What's your assessment, Commander? Can we defeat them in open warfare?" Zalith had prepared for this question. "Unknown, Counselor. They disabled 3 separate fleets in the past, without casualties on either side. Each time, they demonstrated overwhelming precision and restraint. They could have destroyed those fleets, but chose not to. That suggests either supreme confidence in their defensive capabilities, or a genuine preference for diplomatic solutions. Possibly both. Restraint is weakness," Admiral Corvin said dismissively. "They hesitate to kill. We don't." "With respect, Admiral, I disagree. Restraint from a position of strength is not weakness. It's strategy. They've turned 3 potential enemies into trading partners by demonstrating they could have killed but chose not to. Those species now owe Earth their lives. That's more valuable than conquered territory." The High Command argued among themselves for several minutes. Zalith waited, knowing his career might end based on their decision. If they chose war and lost, he would be blamed for not pressing the attack immediately. If they chose negotiation, Hawks would call him weak. Grand Marshal Theron raised his hand for silence. "Commander Zelith, what do you recommend?" This was the moment Zalith had been dreading. His honest answer would anger half the High Command, but lying would condemn the Dominion to a war they might not win. "I recommend we accept Earth's proposal," he said firmly. "Not because we're afraid, but because it's the intelligent choice. Earth offers us partnership, technology sharing, and a path away from unsustainable expansion. We've conquered 47 species, but we can't conquer the entire galaxy. Eventually, we would face unified resistance. Earth is offering us an exit from that trap, with our honor and strength intact." "Honor?" Admiral Corvin's voice was sharp. "There's no honor in surrendering territory we conquered fairly." "We didn't conquer it fairly," Kess said suddenly. The young officer had been silent until now, but something in Corvin's words had pushed him to speak. "Forgive me, Admiral, but I've reviewed the annexation records. We targeted species with limited spaceflight, threatened them with overwhelming force, and claimed their worlds when they couldn't respond to communication protocols they didn't understand. That's not conquest. That's exploitation." The chamber fell silent. Junior officers did not contradict admirals, especially not in front of the High Command. Zalith expected Corvin to explode with rage. Instead, Counselor Varan spoke quietly. "The young officer is not wrong. We've built our expansion on a comfortable lie, that we're bringing civilization to primitive species. But Earth has shown us records of those species trying to surrender, trying to negotiate, trying to meet our demands. We ignored them because their technology couldn't reach us. We called them primitive when we were simply deaf to their voices. This is sentiment, not strategy, Corvin protested. No, Admiral, this is reality, Grand Marshal Theron said heavily. I've reviewed Commander Zelith's full report, including the classified intelligence on previous human encounters. Earth has demonstrated capabilities we cannot match. More concerning, 15 of our annexed species have already requested their protection. If we fight Earth over those worlds, we'll be seen as aggressors throughout the galaxy. Trade will suffer. Alliances will fracture. Even if we win militarily, we'll lose economically and diplomatically. So we surrender? Corvin demanded. We adapt, Theron corrected. The galaxy is changing. Earth represents that change. We can either work with them to shape the new order, or we can fight them and be swept aside by it. I prefer the former. The High Command debated for another hour before reaching a decision. They would negotiate with Earth, but from a position of strength, they would send additional ships to Earth's system as a show of force, demonstrating that the Dominion was not intimidated. Then they would discuss terms. Zelith returned to his quarters after the call ended, feeling unsettled. Sending more ships felt like a mistake, but he was not in command of the Dominion. He could only follow orders and hope Earth understood the gesture as political necessity rather than genuine threat. Kess arrived at his door an hour later with troubling news. Sir, I've been analyzing human communication patterns and psychological profiles based on their cultural data. I need to show you something. The young officer displayed his research. He had studied human concepts of escalation, deterrence, and diplomatic signaling. His conclusion was stark. Humans would interpret additional Korvath ships as either provocation or test, depending on the context. Either way, Earth would respond with a counter-demonstration. They won't back down, Kess said. Everything in their history shows that humans respond to threats with determination. They don't bluff. If we escalate, they'll match us step for step until someone backs down or shooting starts. Then we need to make sure High Command understands that, Zelith replied, but it was too late. The additional Korvath ships arrived in Earth's system 2 days later. 25 vessels, including 3 battleships. It was the largest Korvath fleet, assembled in peaceful space in decades. Earth's response was immediate and public. Admiral Park issued a statement welcoming the additional ships to participate in the ongoing diplomatic discussions. But simultaneously, Earth's orbital platforms powered up to full capacity. Additional defense stations emerged from behind the moon, where they had apparently been hidden. And human ships, sleek vessels that had been dispersed throughout the system, consolidated into defensive formations. Most troubling was what happened next. Earth released footage of their military exercises, broadcast on open channels for anyone to see. The footage showed human weapons hitting targets with perfect accuracy at ranges the Korvath considered impossible. It showed defensive systems intercepting missile swarms that should have been overwhelming. It showed coordination between ships, stations, and ground forces that was seamless. It was not a threat. It was a demonstration. Earth was showing the galaxy exactly what would happen if anyone attacked them. They're not afraid of our fleet, Kess said, watching the broadcast. They're using it as an opportunity to show everyone else why they shouldn't be afraid either. Zelith watched human civilians going about their daily lives on Earth's surface, completely unconcerned about the Korvath fleet in orbit. That bothered him more than the weapons demonstrations. These people genuinely did not fear the Dominion. They trusted their government and military to protect them. That evening, Zelith received a private message from Admiral Park. The text was brief. Commander, we know you're a reasonable officer caught in an unreasonable position. The Supreme Council requests a private conversation with you, off the record. What happens next depends on whether your Dominion values pride or survival. Please consider carefully. Earth wants you as friends, not enemies. Zelith sat alone, looking at the message. A private conversation, off the record. Earth was offering him a way to resolve this without public confrontation. But accepting meant going behind High Command's back. It might be seen as treason. On the other hand, refusing might mean war. And Zalith was increasingly certain that war with Earth was not something the Korvath could win. He looked at Kess, who had stayed in his quarters. "What would you do?" The young officer did not hesitate. "I would accept the meeting, sir. Earth has given us every opportunity to choose peace. If we refuse this one, the next choice might be theirs, not ours." Zalith made his decision. He sent a simple reply to Admiral Park. "I accept. When and where?" The response came immediately. "Tonight. Come alone, but Officer Kess may accompany you if you wish. This conversation is about the future, Commander. We hope you're ready to help build it." As Zalith and Kess prepared to return to Earth's surface, the commander felt something he had not experienced since his first command. Genuine uncertainty about the future. But mixed with that uncertainty was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Perhaps Earth was right. Perhaps there was a better way forward than endless conquest. And perhaps he was about to help his people find it. The private meeting took place not in the Grand Supreme Council chambers, but in a small conference room overlooking Geneva's lights. Secretary General Kim Jae-won was there, along with Admiral Park and Counselor Okonkwo. No guards, no witnesses, no recording devices that Zalith could detect. Just 6 people who would decide the fate of billions. Kim gestured to comfortable chairs arranged around a simple table. "Thank you for coming, Commander Zalith. Officer Kess. Please, sit. Would you like refreshments?" Zalith declined. He wanted this conversation to proceed quickly, before he lost his nerve. "You said this was about the future. What did you mean? We want to show you something we haven't shown anyone else," Kim replied. He activated a holographic display, but instead of weapons or military assets, it showed blueprints, designs for ships, stations, power systems, medical technology. "This is what we're offering the Korvath. Not as payment or bribe, but as partnership. These technologies represent Earth's best work in energy distribution, medical science, and defensive systems." Zalith studied the designs. His engineering training was enough to recognize their value. Some of these systems were decades ahead of Korvath capabilities. "You would give us this?" Not give, Admiral Park corrected gently. "Share. In exchange for the Korvath, sharing your expertise in certain areas where you exceed our capabilities. Real partnership means mutual benefit." "Why?" Kess asked. "Why would you help a species that came to conquer you?" Counselor Okonkwo answered. "Because we've studied your history, Officer Kess. We know the Korvath were not always conquerors. 500 years ago, you were explorers and traders. Then the Zarek invaded your home worlds, killed billions of your people, and nearly destroyed your civilization. You rebuilt around one principle: never be weak again. Conquest became your security." Zalith felt something twist in his chest. These humans had found records even most Korvath had forgotten. The Zarek War was ancient history, rarely discussed. But Okonkwo was right. The Dominion had been born from fear and trauma. "We understand that fear," Kim said quietly. "Humans nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons. We survived by less than anyone should have. We rebuilt our civilization around a different principle. Never let fear drive us to become the monster we're afraid of. That's why we spent 150 years watching the galaxy before revealing ourselves. We wanted to understand everyone before making ourselves vulnerable." "You're saying we became like the Azaric," Zalith said. It was not a question. "No," Admiral Park said firmly. "The Zarek slaughtered for pleasure. The Korvath conquer for security. Different motivations. But the same result for the species you annexed. We're offering you a way to have security without conquest. Join us in building a defensive alliance. Protect vulnerable species instead of annexing them." Become respected for strength, used wisely, instead of feared, for strength, used carelessly. The High Command will never accept this, Zelith said. Too many have built their careers on expansion. They'll see this as weakness. That's why we're talking to you privately, Kim replied. We need someone who can present this to your government in a way they can accept. Someone who understands both military necessity and diplomatic possibility. We believe you're that person, Commander. Zelith laughed bitterly. I'm just a ship commander. I have no political influence. Remember, you have more than you think, Counselor Okonkwo said. You're known as a competent officer who follows orders but thinks independently. Your 12 previous annexations were all accomplished with minimal casualties. You're not a warmonger, Commander. You're a professional doing what your society demanded. But now your society needs something different, and you're positioned to help provide it. Kim leaned forward. We're not asking you to betray your people. We're asking you to save them from a future that ends badly. The galaxy is changing. Smaller species are uniting. Technology is spreading. In 20 years, maybe 50, someone will challenge the Dominion with enough force to matter. It might be us. It might be an alliance of former subjects. Either way, an empire built on conquest will face organized resistance. We're offering you a way to transition before that happens. And if I refuse? If I report this conversation to High Command as an attempt to recruit a traitor? Then we'll respect your choice and continue with public negotiations, Admiral Park said. We'll still offer the same terms. It will just take longer and cost more in political capital on both sides. But we'd rather work with you, Commander. We'd rather have someone who understands the military reality helping to build the peace. Zelith looked at Kess. The young officer had been silent, absorbing everything. What do you think? I think they're right, sir, Kess said slowly. I've spent 3 days studying human history and psychology. They don't bluff. When they say they want partnership, they mean it. When they say they'll fight if necessary, they mean that too. They're offering us respect, security, and an honorable exit from an unsustainable path. I think we should take it. Bull. 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 Your officer is wise, Kim said with a smile. The question is, are you ready to be wise too? Zelith sat in silence for a long moment, weighing his options. He could refuse, return to his ship, and watch as Earth and the Dominion drifted toward conflict. Or he could take a chance on these strange humans who had somehow survived their own worst impulses and now wanted to help others do the same. Finally, he spoke. What exactly do you want me to do? 2. Kim's smile widened. We want you to present our proposal to High Command, but framed as a strategic opportunity rather than a surrender. Emphasize the technology sharing, the mutual defense aspects, the prestige of being founding members of a new galactic alliance. Make them see that partnership with Earth enhances Korvath power rather than diminishing it. You're asking me to sell this, Zelith said. We're asking you to help your people see what we see. A future where strength and cooperation aren't opposites, where the Korvath are respected not just for their military might, but for their wisdom in choosing when not to use it. Zelith made his decision. I'll do it. But I need something from you. Name it, Admiral Park said. I need you to release the formerly annexed species gradually, not all at once. And I need you to publicly credit the Korvath for cooperating in their transition to independence. Let my people save face. Let them be seen as choosing reform rather than being forced to it. Kim nodded immediately. Agreed. We can stage the transitions over 5 years, with Korvath cooperation and support at each step. We'll make it clear this is a joint decision, not an imposed solution. And I need your help convincing High Command, Zelith continued. Not with threats, but with evidence that this benefits the Dominion. Show them what partnership with Earth means in practical terms. We can do that, Counselor Okonkwo said. We've prepared economic projections, security analyses, and technology roadmaps. Everything you need to make the case. They talked for 3 more hours, working out details, preparing arguments, anticipating objections. By the time Zeleth and Kess returned to their ship, dawn was breaking over Geneva. The next week was the hardest of Zeleth's life. He presented Earth's proposal to High Command, framing it exactly as Kim had suggested. He faced fierce opposition from Admiral Corvin and other hawks. But slowly, pragmatists like Grand Marshal Theron began to see the logic. Earth sweetened the deal by demonstrating their technology in private sessions, showing Corvath scientists exactly what partnership would bring. The final decision came down to a vote in the Dominion Council. It passed by a narrow margin, with the condition that Earth honor the face-saving measures Zeleth had negotiated. Kim agreed immediately, publicly praising the Corvath for their wisdom and courage in choosing reform. 6 months later, Zeleth stood in the expanded Supreme Council chambers, now representing the Corvath Dominion as their first ambassador to Earth. Around him sat representatives from 30 species, including 15 formerly annexed worlds, now transitioning to independence with Corvath support. Admiral Park stood beside him, watching as another aggressive Empire's ship entered Earth space, broadcasting the same kind of annexation hail the Corvath had sent a year ago. "They're about to learn what you learned," Park said with a slight smile. "Will you disable their ships like you did to the others?" Zeleth asked. "Only if necessary. We're hoping they'll be smart like you were. But if not," Park shrugged, "we'll demonstrate capability, provide medical care, and invite them to discussions." It worked 30 times already. Kess, now Zeleth's aide, approached with a data pad. "Sir, the response is ready to transmit. All 30 member species have endorsed it." Zeleth nodded. "Send it." The message broadcast across all quantum frequencies, not from Earth alone but from 30 allied species speaking with one voice. "Greetings. We are the Cooperative Defense League. We have received your hail and appreciate your interest in establishing contact. Please wait. The Supreme Council will convene shortly to address your message. We hope you've come in peace, but we're prepared for any scenario. We look forward to welcoming you as friends and partners in building a more secure and prosperous galaxy." Zeleth watched the aggressive Empire's ship on the display. He could imagine their commander's confusion, their uncertainty. A year ago, he had felt exactly the same way. "Do you think they'll accept?" Kess asked quietly. "Eventually," Zeleth replied. "Earth taught me something important. Patient strength always outlasts aggressive pride. That Empire will learn the same lesson, one way or another." Admiral Park placed a hand on Zeleth's shoulder. "You made the right choice, Commander. Your people are stronger now than they ever were, through conquest alone." "Ambassador," Zeleth corrected gently. "I'm Ambassador Zeleth now. A year ago, that would have felt like a demotion. Today, it feels like an honor. That's because you've learned what we learned," Park said. "True power isn't the ability to destroy. It's the wisdom to build instead. Welcome to the future, Ambassador. We're glad you're here to help shape it." As the Supreme Council prepared to receive the new arrivals, Zeleth reflected on the past year. The Corvath Dominion still existed, still strong, still respected, but now they were building influence through partnership rather than fear. Former subject species were becoming genuine allies, and the Corvath themselves, freed from the constant pressure of expansion, were rediscovering the explorer spirit they had lost 500 years ago. Earth had not conquered the Corvath. They had done something far more powerful. They had shown them a better path, and trusted them to take it. That trust, more than any weapon, had changed everything. The door to the council chambers opened. Representatives from 30 species entered, ready to greet whatever came next. Ready to offer friendship first, but prepared to defend if necessary. Ready to build the future one peaceful contact at a time. And somewhere in the galaxy, other aggressive empires received reports of what had happened at Earth. Some would ignore the warnings, others would learn, but all would eventually discover what the Korvath had learned. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not to conquer, but to protect, not to dominate, but to partner, and that made them the most dangerous species of all, because they offered something no empire could fight: hope for something better. General Krathix limped into the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, his 4 legs moving with difficulty. Scars covered his gray skin, remnants of battles he wished he could forget. The chamber was massive, with representatives from 200 different species seated in circular rows that rose toward the crystal dome ceiling. All eyes turned to watch him approach the center platform. He had not wanted to come here. 5 years had passed since the war with humanity. 5 years since he had lost everything: his fleet, his honor, his belief that the council was wise, but they had summoned him, and he still held enough respect for tradition to answer. "General Krathix." The speaker's voice echoed through the chamber. The speaker was a Thalren, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. "You have been called to provide testimony regarding the human conflict. The Council wishes to understand how a primitive species from a single world defeated our expeditionary force." Krathix felt his blood run cold. They still did not understand. After everything, they still believed humanity was primitive. "Honored Council," he began, his voice rough from disuse. "I come not to make excuses for my defeat, but to warn you. Humanity is not what we believed. They are not weak, they are not primitive, and above all..." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several council members exchanged amused glances. "Please explain," the speaker said, though her tone suggested she was merely being polite. Krathix took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I led 50 battleships to Earth's system. Our mission was simple: force the humans to accept council authority and pay the standard tribute. They had been sending exploration ships into council space without permission. We were to teach them proper respect. He paused, remembering that confident journey. How certain he had been of victory. The humans met us with 20 ships. I thought it would be over quickly. I was wrong. His voice dropped. Their weapons burned through our shields like they were nothing. Their ships moved faster than anything I had seen. When we tried to retreat, they followed us. When we tried to fight, they cut through us like we were made of paper. But you survived, Council Member Horvath interrupted, his tentacles waving dismissively. And you negotiated a retreat. Surely this proves the humans can be reasoned with. You misunderstand, Krathix said firmly. I survived because they let me survive. When my flagship was destroyed, I was floating in space, dying. A human ship picked me up. A human medic, a female named Sarah Chen, treated my wounds while her people were still fighting mine. She could have let me die. Instead, she saved me. He looked around the chamber, seeing skepticism on most faces. When the battle ended, the humans called me to their command ship. I expected execution. Instead, Admiral Chenwei offered me tea. She sat across from me and said, "We don't want to be your enemies. We just want you to leave us alone." She let my surviving crews go home. She sent medical supplies for our wounded. She asked only that we sign a treaty recognizing Earth's independence. The chamber erupted in conversation. Several council members were laughing. "So you were defeated by a species that showed you mercy," the speaker said, amusement clear in her voice. "General, perhaps the problem was not human strength, but your own incompetence. Mercy is weakness. A truly strong species would have eliminated you." Krathix felt anger rise in his chest. "That is exactly the mistake I made. I thought mercy meant weakness. I was wrong. Humanity's mercy was not weakness. It was choice. They chose not to exterminate us when they easily could have." "Preposterous," Horvath declared. One world against the might of the Galactic Council? General, I think your defeat has damaged more than your body. Your mind seems affected as well. Other council members nodded in agreement. Krothix felt desperation creeping in. I am telling you the truth. The humans were holding back. Their admiral told me so directly. She said they used only minimal force because they did not want unnecessary death. If we attack them again, enough, the speaker cut him off. General Krothix, this council appreciates your service, but your testimony reveals only your own failures. Humanity controls one star system. We control thousands. The idea that they could threaten us is absurd. She turned to address the full council. It is clear what happened. General Krothix underestimated the humans and led his fleet poorly. The humans, being practical, offered generous terms rather than face a second, larger fleet. This shows wisdom on their part, not strength. Krothix wanted to scream. You are making a terrible mistake. Please. I beg you. The council has made its decision. The speaker announced. Humanity's refusal to accept council authority cannot stand. It sets a dangerous precedent. We will send a new fleet, properly commanded, with sufficient forces to ensure compliance. 200 battleships should be adequate. The vote was swift. Only 12 council members voted against the new expedition. The rest approved it enthusiastically. Krothix stood in the center of the chamber, watching his worst fears become reality. They were going to poke the sleeping monster again, but this time with a bigger stick. General, the speaker said, you are dismissed. Enjoy your retirement. The new fleet will show you how such matters should be handled. He limped out of the chamber, his heart heavy. In the corridor outside, he paused and looked back at the massive doors. Behind them, the council was already discussing logistics, choosing commanders, planning their triumph. They had no idea what they had just done. Krothix thought about Admiral Chen Wei, about her tired eyes when she had offered him that tea. She had looked like someone who had done something necessary but unpleasant. She had looked like someone who hoped never to do it again. Now the council was going to force her hand. He made his way slowly to the communication center. He needed to send a message to his family, to tell them he loved them, because if this war went the way he feared it would, the council's arrogance might doom them all. As he walked, he remembered something else Admiral Chen Wei had said. We really don't want to show you what we can actually do. Please don't make us. The council had just made them. The council's armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a swarm of metal locusts. 200 battleships, each 1 kilometer long, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Their shields glowed with power. Their weapons were charged and ready. Lord Jakor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Triumph, and smiled. He was a Corvesh, tall and reptilian, with golden scales that marked him as nobility. This was his chance to erase the shame that Krothix had brought upon the council. This was his moment of glory. Open a channel to the human homeworld, he commanded. The communication officer, a nervous Pilgrath, nodded. Channel open, my lord. Zakor straightened his uniform and spoke with authority. Attention, humans of Earth. This is Lord Zakor of the Galactic Council Fleet. You have refused to acknowledge council authority. You have rejected your proper place in the galactic order. This ends now. You will surrender immediately and accept council governance, or we will take your world by force. You have 1 standard hour to respond. He closed the channel and turned to his officers. Let them see our power. Let them understand their mistake. 30 minutes later, the response came. A single human ship appeared on their sensors, moving toward the fleet. It was smaller than the council battleships, sleek and dark gray. As it approached, Jakor received a communication request. They wish to speak, my lord. The communication officer reported. Put them through. Let me see their fear. The screen activated, showing a human woman in a dark blue uniform. She had short black hair and calm eyes that reminded Jakor uncomfortably of a predator. Her uniform bore symbols he did not recognize. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said in perfect galactic common language. Her voice was polite but cold. "Lord Jakor, I am authorized to negotiate your fleet's peaceful withdrawal from our system." Jakor laughed. His officers joined him. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation. I command 200 warships. My sensors show you have only 47 ships in your entire system. Surrender is your only option." Chen Wei's expression did not change. "Lord Jakor, I need you to listen carefully. 5 years ago, your council sent a fleet to our system. We defended ourselves using approximately 30% of our actual military capability. We did this because we were trying to minimize casualties on both sides. We did not want to kill unnecessarily." She paused, and something in her eyes made Jakor's amusement fade slightly. "The council has interpreted our restraint as weakness. This was a mistake. I am offering you one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. If you choose to attack, we will defend ourselves with full force. Please understand what that means." Jakor felt his confidence return. This was bluffing, nothing more. Humans were known for their deceptive practices. "Admiral Chen," he said with exaggerated patience, "you expect me to believe you were holding back? That you deliberately lost ships and soldiers? No commander would do such a thing." "You are wrong," Chen Wei replied. "We absolutely would do such a thing if it meant achieving peace with minimal loss of life. But you have given us no choice now. Last chance, Lord Jakor. Withdraw, or face the consequences." Jakor cut the transmission. "Humans and their lies. All ships, prepare to attack. Target their military installations first. Show them what real power looks like." The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Jakor felt satisfaction as his weapons systems locked onto targets. This would be glorious. Fire at will. The council ships unleashed their weapons. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space toward human defensive platforms and ships. Then everything went wrong. The human ships moved. Not the slow, predictable movements of normal vessels, but impossible accelerations that should have been fatal to any crew. They simply weren't where the weapons fire went. Every shot missed. "What?" Jakor started to say. The human counterattack was like nothing he had ever witnessed. Their weapons struck with surgical precision. Not random fire, but calculated shots that hit specific systems. Shields failed. Engines exploded. Weapon arrays melted into slag. 3 council ships were disabled in the first 30 seconds. "Evasive maneuvers," Jakor shouted. "Return fire!" But the human ships were everywhere and nowhere. They moved through his formation like sharks through fish. Each pass leaving another council ship crippled or destroyed. Their weapons burned hotter than anything in council arsenals. Their accuracy was perfect. 10 ships gone. 20, 30. "My lord, they are not trying to disable us anymore," his tactical officer screamed. "They are destroying everything they hit." Jakor watched in horror as his beautiful fleet was torn apart. A human ship, smaller than his cruisers, took on 5 council battleships simultaneously and reduced them to debris in under 2 minutes. "How are they moving like that?" his helmsman gasped. "Those accelerations should kill organic crews." An emergency transmission came through from one of his surviving captains. "Lord Jakor, I am reading the data on these ships. The gravitational forces they are pulling would crush any of our people. How are the humans surviving this?" Jakor did not have an answer. He watched as Admiral Chen Wei's flagship, now identifiable by its command signatures, executed a maneuver that involved accelerating, spinning, and reversing direction in a way that violated everything he knew about biology. 50 council ships destroyed, 70, 100. "My lord, we must retreat," his first officer begged. But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human ships had surrounded them. Every escape vector was covered. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the human attack stopped. Jacor's damaged flagship drifted among the wreckage of his fleet. Warning alarms blared. Fires burned in 3 sections. Over half his crew was dead or injured. A transmission came through. Admiral Chen Wei again, her face still calm but her eyes tired. Lord Jacor, your fleet is disabled. I am sending rescue ships to evacuate your survivors before your reactors fail. Do not resist. This is over. Jacor slumped in his command chair, staring at the debris field that had been his pride. In less than an hour, 200 battleships had been reduced to scrap and corpses, and the humans were sending rescue ships. He thought about Krathix, about the old general's warnings, about how everyone had laughed. No one was laughing now. Through his viewport, he saw human rescue craft approaching, moving carefully through the wreckage. They were coming to save the people who had just tried to conquer their world. Jacor finally understood what Krathix had tried to tell them. Humanity's mercy was not weakness. It was a choice they made even when they had every reason not to. And that, more than their weapons or their ships, was what made them truly terrifying. Krathix sat in his small apartment on Velkar Station, watching the news feeds with grim satisfaction. The reports were chaotic, contradictory, but the truth was clear enough. The Council's grand fleet had been destroyed. He poured himself a drink of his homeworld's traditional spirits and raised the glass toward the display screen. I tried to warn you, he said quietly to the images of panicking council members. You would not listen. His communication console chimed. An intelligence report. Flagged. Urgent. Even in retirement, Krathix maintained contacts in military intelligence. Old friends, who still valued his judgment. He opened the file and began reading. What he saw made his hands tremble. The report was a compilation of data gathered from the battle, from interrogations of survivors, from human databases that had been briefly accessed before Earth's security protocols locked everything down again. It was incomplete, fragmented, but it painted a picture that explained everything. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Krathix had to read that line 3 times. Class 12. The Galactic database only went up to Class 15, and those worlds were considered uninhabitable hellscapes where nothing intelligent could possibly evolve. He kept reading. Earth's gravity was 1.3 times standard. The air contained 21% oxygen, a concentration that would be toxic to most species for extended periods. The temperature swings between seasons were extreme. The planet had active tectonics, violent storms, and an ecosystem full of predators. And humans had evolved at the top of that nightmare's food chain. The report included a section on human biology that made Krathix's blood run cold. Humans were endurance hunters. On Earth, they had literally chased prey animals for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They could regulate their body temperature through liquid secretion, something almost unique in the galaxy. They could survive for weeks without food, days without water, and continue functioning with minimal sleep. Their reaction time was optimized for pursuit predation. Their eyes could track fast-moving objects with precision. They could throw projectiles with deadly accuracy, a rare skill among intelligent species. But it was the section on human psychology that truly frightened him. Humans formed emotional bonds across species barriers. They had domesticated other predators on their world, turning wolves into companions. They felt empathy for beings that were not their own kind. This was almost unknown in nature, yet they were also capable of terrible violence when threatened. Human history was filled with wars, conflicts, and weapons of horrifying creativity. They had developed nuclear weapons before achieving spaceflight. They had created artificial plagues. They had invented ways to kill that showed both genius and horror. And they had learned, slowly and painfully through their own bloody history, to control these impulses, to choose cooperation over destruction when possible. Krathix thought back to his time aboard the human ship after his rescue. He remembered Sarah Chen, the medic, working on his injuries while her ship was still in combat. He had asked her why she bothered saving enemy wounded. "Because you are not my enemy," she had said, her hands gentle despite the weapons she carried. "Your government is my enemy. You are just a soldier following orders. Same as me." At the time, he had thought it was naivety. Now, he understood, it was something far more complex. Humans could separate the individual from the institution. They could hate the war while still seeing the person on the other side as someone worth saving. His console chimed again. Another file. This one, marked with the highest security clearance. Krathix should not have access to it, but his friend in intelligence was apparently willing to risk court-martial to share this information. The file contained an intercepted communication from Admiral Chen Wei to Lord Jakor after the battle. Krathix played it. Chen Wei's face appeared, and Krathix was struck again by her eyes. They were brown, warm, by human standards, but they held something ancient and tired. "Lord Jakor, I want you to understand something," she said in the recording. "The maneuvers you saw today, the ones that terrified your people, those are normal for us. The gravity forces that would kill your crews are what we grew up with. The acceleration that seems impossible is just how we built our ships, because we can handle it, and you cannot." She paused, and Krathix saw sadness in her expression. "We are not trying to be cruel. We are not trying to terrify you. But you need to understand what we are. Earth is not a gentle world. It made us tough in ways you cannot imagine. We can outrun, outthink, and outlast almost any species we have met. Not because we are better than you, but because our world demanded it for survival." Chen Wei leaned closer to the camera. "5 years ago, when we fought your first fleet, we were trying to minimize deaths. We let many of your ships escape. We pulled our punches because we hoped you would understand the message, 'Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone.' But you interpreted our mercy as weakness. You came back with more ships, more weapons, more arrogance." Her voice became harder. "So we stopped holding back. Not completely, we could have destroyed every ship in minutes instead of an hour. We could have pursued your fleeing vessels and eliminated them. But we did not. Even now, even after you came to conquer our world, we are still showing you more mercy than you showed us." The recording ended. Krathix sat in silence, processing what he had learned. The humans had still been holding back. Even in that devastating battle, they had not used their full capability. What would that look like? What could humanity do if they truly stopped caring about enemy casualties? He did not want to know. Another thought struck him. The humans were not just physically formidable. They were psychologically unique. They could be ruthlessly efficient killers when necessary, then turn around and rescue the survivors with genuine compassion. They could hate what they had to do while still doing it perfectly. This was what the Council had provoked. Not simple warriors, but a species that had spent millions of years learning to survive on a world that wanted them dead, then spent thousands more years learning to control their own violent nature. Krathix opened a new communication window. He needed to contact the Council again, even though they had not listened before. Because now, he had proof. Now, he had data. As he composed his message, he thought about Sarah Chen again. She had told him something while treating his wounds, something he had not understood at the time. "We do not want to be the monsters," she had said. "We have seen what happens when powerful beings choose cruelty. Earth's history taught us that lesson in blood. We would rather be feared for what we could do than hated for what we did." Now, finally, Krathix understood. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their ability to choose mercy, even when vengeance would be easier. And the Council had just forced them to show what happened when that mercy was withdrawn. He finished his message and sent it to every Council member he could reach. Most would ignore it. Some would mock him again. But maybe, just maybe, a few would listen. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other across the circular rows. Some demanded immediate retaliation against humanity. Others called for peace. Many simply sat in shocked silence. The speaker struck her crystalline staff against the floor 3 times, creating a sound that cut through the noise. "Order! We will have order!" The chamber gradually quieted, though tension remained thick in the air. "We have received preliminary reports from the survivors," the speaker continued, her voice strained. "Of 200 battleships, only 43 returned. Over 100,000 council personnel are dead or missing. Lord Jekor is in medical care and unable to testify." A Corvesh representative stood, his golden scales dull with stress. "How is this possible? How could primitives from one world destroy our fleet?" "Perhaps," a quiet voice said from the entrance, "because you should have listened to me the first time." All heads turned. General Krothix stood at the chamber doors, leaning on a support cane. He looked older than when he had testified before, but his eyes were sharp. "General Krothix," the speaker said coldly, "you were not summoned." "No, but I am here anyway. And this time, you are going to listen." He limped down to the central platform, moving slowly but with determination. "I sent you data files. I sent you intelligence reports. I sent you everything you needed to understand what humanity is. Did any of you read them?" The silence was answer enough. Krothix activated the chamber's display systems. Images appeared in the air above the central platform. Images of Earth, of humans, of battles. "Let me educate you," he said, his voice carrying authority he had not shown in years. "This is Earth. By galactic standards, it is a death world. High gravity, dangerous atmosphere, extreme conditions. Most of you could not survive there for a day without protective equipment." He changed the image to show human anatomy. "This is what evolved on that nightmare planet. Humans are endurance predators. Do you understand what that means? It means they hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can run for hours. They can function on minimal rest. Their bodies are built to survive conditions that would kill most of us." A council member interrupted. "But we have seen humans. They do not look that formidable." Krothix laughed bitterly. "That is exactly the mistake everyone makes. Humans do not look dangerous. They are not large. They do not have natural armor or claws. But they are persistence incarnate, and they are creative in ways that should terrify you." He pulled up footage from the recent battle. "Watch this. See how their ships move? Those acceleration forces would turn your bodies to liquid. Humans feel it as uncomfortable pressure. They built their technology around capabilities that seem impossible to us because they are impossible for us." The council watched in silence as human ships danced through the battle, moving with grace and speed that defied physics as most species understood it. "But here is what you really need to understand," Krothix continued, changing the display again. "Humans have been fighting each other for their entire history. They invented weapons before they invented agriculture. They created ways to kill that make our military technology look primitive." Images flashed by human weapons through the ages, from simple spears to devices that could crack planets. "And then," Krothix said softly, "they learned to stop. They looked at their own history, at the suffering they had caused themselves, and they chose a different path. Not because they became weak, but because they became wise." He turned to face the council directly. "When I was rescued by humans after my fleet was destroyed, I met a medic named Sarah Chen. She treated my wounds while her ship was still under fire. I asked her why she bothered. Do you know what she said?" The chamber waited. "She said that I was not her enemy, that my government was her enemy, but I was just a soldier doing my job. She separated me, the individual, from the institution I represented. This is something humans do naturally that most of us struggle to understand." Krothix pulled up the final image Admiral Chen Wei's face during her communication with Jekor. "This is Admiral Chen Wei. She commanded the defense of Earth in both conflicts. After destroying your fleet, she sent rescue ships to save the survivors. She did this Even though you came to conquer her world, even though you killed her people, she still chose to save you. He let that sink in for a moment. Do you understand yet? Humanity's mercy is not weakness. It is a conscious choice they make despite every evolutionary instinct telling them to eliminate threats permanently. They choose not to because they have learned, through their own terrible history, what happens when powerful beings refuse mercy. The speaker was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. What do you suggest we do, General? I suggest you do what you should have done 5 years ago. Acknowledge Earth as an independent power. Respect their boundaries. Offer genuine peace, not demands disguised as negotiations. He paused. And pray they accept. Pray? A council member scoffed. To whom? To anyone who might listen. Krathix replied seriously. Because if you provoke them again, if you make them believe that peace is impossible, they will stop showing mercy. And if humanity ever decides that the galaxy is too dangerous to let us continue as we are, we will not be able to stop them. The chamber erupted in argument again. But it was different this time. There was less arrogance, more fear. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. The speaker called for order once more. The council will vote on General Krathix's proposal. All in favor of opening peace negotiations with Earth on equal terms. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 147 in favor, 30 against, 23 abstaining. The motion passes, the speaker announced. We will contact Earth immediately and request, she emphasized the word, a diplomatic meeting. Krathix nodded slowly. It was not everything he had hoped for, but it was a start. As the council members began filing out, several approached him. They asked questions about humanity, about Earth, about how to approach the negotiations without causing offense. One young representative from a species Krathix did not recognize asked, General, do you think they will accept peace? Krathix thought about Sarah Chen's gentle hands treating his wounds. He thought about Admiral Chen Wei's tired eyes after the battle. He thought about how humans had sent rescue ships even for enemies who had tried to destroy them. Yes, he said finally. They will accept peace, because despite everything we have done to them, despite every reason they have to hate us, humans still want the same thing they wanted at the beginning. They just want to be left alone. They want respect, not conquest. They want cooperation, not war. He looked at the young representative seriously. The question is not whether they will accept peace. The question is whether we will be wise enough to honor it this time. The representative nodded and walked away, deep in thought. Krathix stood alone in the emptying chamber, leaning on his cane. He was tired. The wounds from 5 years ago still ached. But for the first time since that terrible war, he felt something like hope. Maybe the galaxy had finally learned its lesson. Maybe humanity would get the peace they deserved. And maybe, just maybe, the Council would never forget what happened when they pushed the Death World predators too far. 3 months after the second battle, something unprecedented happened. A human diplomatic vessel entered Council space. The ship was not large by military standards, but its arrival caused panic throughout the Council stations. Security forces went on high alert. Some representatives suggested fleeing, others suggested immediate attack. The speaker, to her credit, maintained order. The human delegation consisted of 12 people led by Ambassador Park Ji-hyun, a middle-aged woman with gray-streaked hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore formal diplomatic attire in dark blue, the same color as the Terran Defense Fleet uniforms. Krathix watched from the visitors' gallery as the humans entered the council chamber. He had been invited to attend as an observer, given his unique experience with humanity. The chamber was packed. Every council member was present, along with military advisors and diplomatic staff. Everyone wanted to see what humanity would demand. Ambassador Park walked to the central platform with calm confidence. She did not move like a warrior, but there was something in her bearing that suggested she could be dangerous if necessary. It reminded Krathix of Admiral Chen Wei, honored members of the Galactic Council. Park began in perfect galactic common, her voice clear and measured. I come before you today to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Council, and to ensure that what has happened between us never happens again. She activated a holographic display. A map of space appeared, showing Earth's solar system and the surrounding sectors. Earth claims sovereignty over these systems, she said, highlighting an area that included 50 star systems. We ask that the Council recognize this as Terran space. In exchange, we offer peaceful trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense agreements for any Council member that wishes to establish friendly relations. Murmurs ran through the chamber. The territory was substantial but not unreasonable. More importantly, the humans were not demanding tribute or reparations despite their military victories. We do not seek to join the Council at this time, Park continued. We prefer to maintain our independence while establishing ourselves as peers in the galactic community. However, we are willing to sign non-aggression treaties and participate in joint initiatives that benefit all parties. The speaker leaned forward. And if the Council refuses these terms? Park's expression did not change, but something in her eyes hardened. Then we will maintain our borders by force. We do not want war. We have never wanted war, but we will defend ourselves if necessary, and the Council has already seen what that means. She paused, letting the implied threat sink in. However, I do not believe it will come to that. The Council has shown wisdom in requesting these negotiations. I believe we can find terms that satisfy everyone. For the next 3 hours, Park answered questions from Council members. She was patient with even hostile questions, clear in her explanations, and firm, but not aggressive in her positions. Krathix found himself impressed. The ambassador was skilled at diplomacy in ways that complemented humanity's military capabilities. She made peace seem not just possible, but desirable. Finally, the speaker called for a recess. The human delegation was escorted to guest quarters, while the Council debated in private. Krathix made his way to those quarters, using his diplomatic credentials to request a meeting. To his surprise, Park agreed. Immediately, they met in a simple conference room. Park sat across from him, studying his scars with professional interest, but no pity. General Krathix, she said, I have read the reports about your testimony to the Council. Both times. Thank you for trying to prevent this war. I failed, Krathix said simply. But you tried. That matters. Park poured tea from a human vessel she had brought, apparently a diplomatic tradition. I am told you were rescued by one of our medical officers. Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen. Yes, she saved my life when she had no reason to. She was reprimanded for that, you know, Park said, surprising him. Some of our commanders thought she took an unnecessary risk, treating enemy wounded during active combat, but she did it anyway. Yes, because that is who we are. Or who we try to be, at least. Park sipped her tea. General, I am going to tell you something that very few people outside Earth know. When your first fleet arrived, our military leadership recommended destroying it completely. They had contingency plans that would have eliminated every ship within the first hour. Krathix felt his blood chill. But our civilian government overruled them. Our president at the time said that we needed to remember who we wanted to be, not just who we could be. So we held back. We tried to send a message without unnecessary killing. She set down her cup. The Council interpreted this as weakness, as you know, and it nearly cost us everything when the second fleet arrived. But even then, even when we knew we could not afford mercy, we still chose to save the survivors. Because if we lose that, if we become the monsters we are capable of being, then we have lost something more important than any war. Krathix met her eyes. What did Admiral Chen Wei mean when she told Lord Jakor that humanity had still been holding back, even in the second battle? Park was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, We have weapons we did not use, General. Weapons that could sterilize worlds. Weapons that could crack planets. Weapons we built during our darkest times and swore never to use again. If we had truly stopped caring about enemy casualties, your fleet would not have lasted 10 minutes. She looked tired suddenly, much like Chen Wei had in those recordings. But we did care. Even after you tried to conquer us. Even after you killed our people. We still cared enough to send rescue ships. That is humanity's strength, and our weakness. We can be the galaxy's most dangerous predators, but we would rather be its friends. Later that evening, the council reconvened. The vote was swift and overwhelming. Earth's terms were accepted with only minor modifications. Trade agreements were drafted. Embassy exchanges were planned. Humanity officially joined the galactic community as an independent power. During the ceremony formalizing the agreements, Ambassador Park made a short speech that would be remembered across 1,000 worlds. "We want what everyone wants," she said. "To be left alone when we ask. To be respected when we speak. To be remembered as the people who chose to protect rather than conquer. If you force us to be warriors, we will be the best warriors you have ever seen. But we would much rather be your friends." Krathix watched from the gallery as the council members stood and applauded. It was genuine this time, not the polite diplomacy of politics. They had learned their lesson at tremendous cost. After the ceremony, Admiral Chen Wei herself arrived, joining the delegation. Krathix requested a meeting with her, and she agreed. They met in a garden on the council station, among plants from 12 worlds. Chen Wei looked the same as in the recordings, calm, competent, and carrying a weight that Krathix understood too well. "Admiral," he said, "I wanted to thank you. For Sarah Chen. For saving my life." "She made her own choice," Chen Wei replied. "But I supported it. You deserved mercy, even if your government did not. I have one question, if you will permit it." "Ask." "Why? After everything we did, after we tried twice to conquer your world, why did you still show mercy?" Chen Wei looked up at the artificial sky above the garden. "Because we have seen what happens when powerful beings refuse mercy, General. Earth's history is full of empires that chose cruelty over compassion. We learned, eventually, that strength without restraint does not make you powerful. It makes you monstrous. Thus, Five. She looked back at him. We would rather be feared for what we could do than hated for what we did. And we would rather be remembered as the people who had the power to destroy, but chose to protect instead." Krathix felt something in his chest, a feeling he had not experienced in 5 years. It took him a moment to recognize it as hope. "The galaxy is fortunate," he said quietly. Chen Wei smiled, a small, sad expression. "Because if we had not learned those lessons, if we had not seen the cost of endless war on our own world, we might have become something far worse than any threat the galaxy has ever faced." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 veterans of a war neither had wanted, both hoping it would be the last. In the council chamber behind them, representatives from 200 species worked together to build a peace with humanity. A peace based not on fear alone, but on respect. A peace that acknowledged Earth as an equal, not a subject. And in military academies across the galaxy, a new lesson would be taught. A lesson about a species that had the power to destroy, but chose to protect. About warriors who could be terrifying in battle, yet gentle in peace. About the Death World predators who became the galaxy's reluctant guardians. The lesson was simple. Never mistake humanity's mercy for weakness. And never, ever, make them show you what they are truly capable of. Because if you do, you might not survive to regret it.